Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Corporal Moira Walker. We warmly welcome the Second World War Royal Australian Air Force veterans, Mr. Ross Pulling and Ms. Ray Hutchinson, who are in attendance this evening. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL and Services Club Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching this ceremony broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors, as well as students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, Mary Immaculate Primary School from Quakers Hill, and from Victoria, North Melbourne Primary School and Findon Primary School. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Thank you. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Clifford Minor Bigelow. Clifford Bigelow was born in 1878, the second oldest child of James and Agnes Bigelow. While his father was from Canada and his parents married in New Zealand, Clifford was one of 3 Bigelow children born in Newcastle, New South Wales, with other siblings being born in New Zealand and Victoria. Clifford attended school in Richmond, and it is likely he spent most of his childhood there. After school, he worked as a carpenter, and at the time of his enlistment was living in South Yarra, Melbourne, with his wife Elise and 2 children, Leslie and Ina. Bigelow enlisted in the Australia Imperial Force on the 1st of February 1916 and began training at the Broadmeadows camp near Melbourne. On the 4th of May, he sailed from Melbourne aboard the transport ship Port Lincoln with reinforcements for the 59th Australian Infantry Battalion. He arrived in Suez, Egypt in June 1916, where he continued training and formally joined the 5th Australian Division. In August, he sailed from Alexandria for England. Here he trained at the Lark Hill camp on the Salisbury Plain before departing for France and the war on the Western Front. He arrived in France in November 1916, just in time for the coldest winter in living memory. He joined the 59th Battalion on the 30th of November as it was training and resting behind the front lines of northern France near Flers. Bigelow immediately experienced the hardships, drudgery, and horror of trench warfare. Throughout early December, he served in reserve and frontline trenches, exposed to terrible winter conditions and high explosive artillery fire. On the 2nd of December, in an effort to reduce the risk of men scumbling to trench foot, strict orders were issued to his unit to ensure that all troops applied whale oil to their feet and changed their socks daily. When in the trenches, the men spent their time improving the trench system and clearing the muddy and sudden duckboards upon which they walked. On the 12th of December 1916, the field diary of the 59th Battalion recorded the kind of warfare Bigelow experienced. It snowed, and after the snow thawed, cold rain beat down on the freezing men. The heavy rain caused parts of the trench to cave in, and the men worked in severe conditions in an effort to make necessary repairs. On the same day at 5 p.m, the Germans launched a high explosive artillery barrage that lasted for 40 minutes. Casualties from sickness and artillery were common. On the 14th of December, Bigelow was evacuated from the frontline trenches, sick with bronchitis and trench foot. Over the next 4 days, Bigelow passed through the Anzac Main dressing station, the 38th Casualty Clearing Station, and finally No. 1 Australian General Hospital in Rouen. Here he was admitted with acute bronchitis on the 16th of December. 2 days later, on the 18th of December, 1916, he died of his illness. He was 38 years old, survived by his wife and 2 children. Bigelow had been at the front line for 19 days and had been in the Australian military for less than a year. He is buried in the Saint Sever Cemetery Extension in France, where over 8,600 casualties of the First World War now lie. His grieving wife left the inscription on his grave, "In memory of my dearly beloved husband." His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His portrait is displayed today beside the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Clifford Minor Bigelow, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in a hope for a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We'd like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.